versus Shadow Cartel.
Hello and welcome to Alliance Tournament 15. My name is Brett Thomas. I am here with Moderator, and we have on screen the Northern Coalition vs Shadow Cartel match. I'm going to introduce Northern Coalition. We have EOS, Dual Stratios, Dual Mem, Dual Ishtar, Vexer Navy Issue, Vexer Stiletto. They've all come in at range. This is what we've seen as a most traditional kind of drone comp. They look like they're going to have a huge amount of damage, and we have no logistics. Moderator, what have Shadow Cartel brought?
Shadow Cartel have brought in a start, a pair of Navy Harbingers, two Navy Brutixes, a Harbinger, a pair of Deacons, a Hyena, and a Vexer. Shadow Cartel going for a distributed drone corps with some links in those battle cruisers and the command ship. The logistics Deacons, the Hyena, and the Vexer. What Shadow Cartel really wants to do here is use the sustain that they have from the Deacons to compensate for the lower overall damage that they have compared to Northern Coalition. If they can survive longer and trade out with those logistics on field, they're going to be in a rather advantageous position. One thing that strikes me as being a bit curious from Northern Coalition is that they've brought the Stiletto as opposed to one of the armor traditional interceptors. Walk us through that a bit, Brett Thomas.
Well, the Stiletto is, as we know, one of the fastest frigate you can bring. I suppose they've probably went for it as opposed to something like a Daredevil, just so they can try and catch these Deacons and catch something small that might be going like 3-4k per second, as we've got now down to 10 seconds before the match starts.
Yeah, both teams having warped in at more or less ranges from the beacon. It'll be really interesting to see how both teams play positionally to try to get tackle, and how Shadow Cartel closes to range with that Hyena and grab something for the long-range battle cruisers to shoot. And it looks like their primary will be Sharps in his Vexer Navy, while Northern Coalition tries to get their drones on top of the Vexer of Gremik.
Yeah, Northern Coalition is doing quite a nice backpedal. They're flying away from Shadow Cartel as those drones swarm towards them, as this Vexer Navy is already dropping into armor from the huge amount of drones, the Praetor 2s that are currently on it.
Yeah, that is an absolutely menacing swarm of drones. Just the overview is covered on top of Gremik with these heavy drones, which are doing appreciable damage to him, but Shadow Cartel answering back, trading out nearly a Vexer Navy issue and locking down an EOS for a Vexer. This is a really good trade for Shadow Cartel if they can kill Sharps rather quickly.
Shadow Cartel have got a gun that is dropping into really deep armor. It's webbed and it's painted and it's slowed down to about sub 400, so it can't outrun these drones, and it's dropping into structure and it's already gone. This is huge. Shadow Cartel need both those Deacons alive to keep each other up, as the second one's already webbed and it's already starting to drop. But it looks like Shadow Cartel have caught this Ishtar on the NC team, trying to delete as much damage as possible as fast as possible.
Yeah, Shadow Cartel really wanted those Deacons, as I was mentioning earlier, and so far they're killing Alex or HX33 in this Ishtar, who is rather far from the arena center, but they're trading him out at about the same time that Janstada in the Harbinger is dropping. Shadow Cartel needs to be trading faster if they want to remain competitive in this match.
Yeah, Northern Coalition trading an Ishtar for a Harbinger and two Deacons, that's definitely advantageous, as this other Navy Harbinger of Ripid Tech is starting to go down. A Stratius has been caught, but it's a little slow drop. As you can see, a lot of these ships are sitting on beacons away from everybody else to try and jump away if they get caught.
Yeah, Northern Coalition doing a good job at kiting away. One of the difficulties with this Battlecruiser Core comp, and one of the difficulties that Rip Arteg is definitely having as he now drops, is that Northern Coalition can apply their full damage from nearly anywhere in the arena, whereas Shadow Cartel has to load longer range, so less damaging ammo, if they want to actually break Kraylor and Estradios. And he's dying much slower than any of the Shadow Cartel ships on the grid. Is Big Thump is now already into about half armor at the same time that Kraylor drops. Northern Coalition only up 7 points right now, but taking a commanding lead in tempo.
Yeah, as the other Navy Harbinger starts to drop, Northern Coalition did something very smart at the start of this match. They got rid of the stuff at the low end, stopped them having tackle, and just had their ships spread out immediately. If you watch, the damage that swaps instantly from Northern Coalition The damage that Shadow Cartel do instantly from, say, a Stratios that just went down to an Eos, but it's not that much damage due to the range. As Northern Coalition's damage is a little bit delayed, it is a huge amount of damage on each of these ships, as you see this Navy Brutix already into structure.
Yeah, Amira Khan is completely disappearing. DHB Wildcat is being primary, but he's sitting rather pretty, with most of his armor remaining. Northern Coalition, they still have a Stratios, a pair of Myrmidons, and an Ishtar, so they've got additional 4 damage cores, while Shadow Cartel only has the Astarte and the Brutix really left after Amira Khan drops. So the Hyena, sure, it's there, but it's not actually doing any sort of appreciable damage besides getting the web and the paint on top of DHB Wildcat. And that's one of the difficulties of this composition, is that you really need to invest extra points into ships that allow you to actually apply, like the Hyena, whereas Northern Coalition, sure, they have the Stiletto, but it's less points expensive, and they were just able to invest their entire composition into really heavy damage dealing drone boats. So Miracon now dropping, DHB Wildcat likely to go down, but Northern Coalition up rather significantly. Really well played by them, Brett.
Yeah, you can see how good drone comps are with the percentage of the attack bar that gets filled up when all of the drones arrive on the target. Usually you see only a small percentage, maybe about 10-15% is actually being applied. But if you watch now, it starts to spike as the drones arrive on the target. It gets huge amount of their attack bar is actually applied, which is why these ships are going down so fast.
And now the last major ship of Shadow Cartel, Patrick Casper, is taking a significant amount of damage. The full cloud of Praetors and Berserkers are on him at 0. Good fights in local from both sides. And DHB Wildcat will drop, but it's just one ship that they've lost that they can easily replace. Unfortunately, Shadow Cartel, for their side, dropping down. One of the low-sec Titans that we saw do rather well in the first weekend. Next match should also be an exciting group of low-sec Titans, where we've got Project Mayhem and Snuffbox, both rivals to these two entities we see on screen. It's interesting to see these kind of Tranquility giants battle it out with each other.
Yeah, they really seem to have such a huge following, as we notice the numbers spike when a lot of things like guns or Northern Coalition join. They've got a lot of support, and it seems like there's a lot of work into making their teams really good and really skilled.
Yeah, Northern Coalition coming in top 4 last year, taking a commanding lead over Shadow Cartel, and they seem poised to make a rather deep run in the winner's side, taking this win over Shadow Cartel, a total of 100 to 49 points. So really well played by them. I'm sure the studio will have a lot to say on that as we send it back to Poppy and the boys.
Brother gets off work at 4 o'clock and we're coming down here to kick some mother.
Welcome back after a very messy game from Shadow Cartel there. They were in fact putting their rep bots on the NC Dot team that they were shooting, which is typically speaking not the way to win that match. NC Dot having beautiful execution there of a drone team. Reload, would you tell us a little bit about that execution we saw and how they did it and how those drone teams work?
So basically, especially in a drone all-in, what Northern Coalition brought, how you're supposed to execute it is basically you drop your drones. You obviously go for the primary, and obviously since drones they do all the damage for you. You don't have to worry about tracking or range or anything like that. So what you have, so basically in a drone island, especially against like a turret or any matchup, you just want to starburst. You want to get away from the enemy team as far as possible and just like go everywhere. Basically, you want to go on those MJD beacons. You just want to be skirting the edge of the arena. Basically, you don't want to be next to the enemy, because if they're a turret team, then obviously they have to split off and try and go for one by one. And if it's a drone team, then you have to work about those the drone time DPS issues. So NC Dot doing what they had to do, starbursting, while Shadow Cartel, I mean they tried. They did kill a few of the Northern Coalition drone ships, but it was too little too late. It was pretty much a DPS race after the Deacons died.
Yep. So moving forward, NC Dot will be going on to face the winner of Snuffbox versus Project Mayhem, which is our next match coming up here. More on that later. First, we have a little bit of news from the losers bracket. We have a flagship death to bring up on screen. This is from Band of Backstabbers. They actually lost their losers bracket match and thus out of the tournament. However, the traitorous backstabber from Band of Backstabbers has successfully stabbed the rulebook in the back, as he has fitted some very naughty illegal modules. He has the Shadow Serpentis damage control, the Syndicate reinforced bulkheads, and a X-type micro warp drive, all of which are absolutely against the rules. We've had that confirmed by CCP, and those backstabbers are just stabbing everything on their way out of the tournament. Unfortunately, despite spending a whole bunch of money, those damage controls especially are not cheap. They are out of the tournament, going 0-2 all the way through. But still, I don't know what CCP can do about that, but they broke the rules and lost anyway. So ha to them. Right, so moving forwards, we have Snuffbox versus Project Mayhem. Now, Ithaca, do you want to tell us a little bit about the relationship between Snuffbox and Project Mayhem on TQ?
So Snuffbox and Project Mayhem are essentially, I guess, frenemies is the best way to refer to them. They like to form up together. Snufflebox, as you call waffles as well. Yeah. So they're just adding in all the little low-sec groups together. But Project Mayhem, of course, mainly Russian-focused, and Snuffbox mainly EU-US. So this is the two titans of low-sec facing off to see which one is the most elite, which one is the number one low-sec kings. This is almost a grudge match.
These matches always tend to be quite special when you have two groups that tend to work closely together, going up against each other. I remember my heart exploding on several occasions during the PL NC match from last year. So hopefully this Project Mayhem Snuffed Out match is going to give us equal delight. Do you guys have any predictions of Snuffed Out versus Project Mayhem? Do you think that either team has an advantage going forward, or you think it's going to be pretty even? Ithaca? I
think this one's going to be really, really even. I think both teams are going to put pride right out in front here and bring their A game. They don't want to be the one that loses this matchup. But I think Snuffbox have got a good chance of taking this one. I'm gonna back Snuffbox. I think it's gonna be close. Of course, Snuffbox lost their flag Balgorn yesterday as well, so that's an interesting point. Could have Project Mayhem perhaps exploiting that with the Balgorn ban.
Do Project Mayhem still have their flag? I'm assuming they do. I don't quite know what it was. That's something we can bring up. Raylo, why don't you tell me your thoughts about this matchup?
I'm going to go with the opposite on Ithaca and say Snuffbox, Project Mayhem have the advantage on this one, because they can bring a flagship and they can ban out the Balgorn of Snuffbox. So there's a double whammy there. You've got the ban and you've got the flagship, and they can even ban their own flagship and bring it anyway, just to phase out and out meta Snuffbox. So I think Project Mayhem may have this one.
Yep, so looking at the comps they brought yesterday, we have Project Mayhem bringing that Balgorn with 2 Brutix Navy issues, an Augur, 2 Harbingers, a Confessor, 2 Vexors, and a Purifier. Then Snuffbox themselves, they bought their Balgorn, which unfortunately passed, as you said, that was in a drone-based team. So that had a Guardian, 2 Ishtars, 2 Myrmidons, a Hyena, 2 Vexors, and a Hound. So both teams loving the Balgorn, big heavy newts, obviously popular in low sec for helping kill capitals, or in especially wormhole space as well. But both teams showing a love for the Vexor there. It's something worth mentioning that we've seen a lot more of the T1 cruisers coming back in this year. We've seen a little bit of Mauler, a little bit of Moa, but mostly Vexor. Ithaca, do you want to tell us why the Vexor this year has seen such a resurgence and why it might be considered so good?
Well, the Vexor at only 4 points is just a really good utility ship to just fit into almost any comp, especially in an armor comp, as you can use those utility mids to fit, for example, ECM, tracking disruptors, remote sensor boosters to, for example, ECCM your Logi, and they also bear a spectacular amount of damage for such a low point cost at 4 points, and a full flight of damage drone is getting a couple hundred DPS, which can then, the Vexor itself can kite off and then just not be killed for a long, long time. You can also use it as a heavy tackle. You can tank a Vexor very, very heavily. So there's just so many different ways you can fit a Vexor into almost any comp. Very, very useful ship, basically.
Reload, are there any other ships kind of in the lower end of the team comps that you expect to see kind of come through a resurgence this year, like the Vexor has done, maybe through point change, those T1 cruisers coming down? Are there any support ships that you're expecting to see come through? Maybe we haven't seen yet, maybe we have, that you're expecting to kind of come out of the tournament play that we haven't seen in the last year or two?
Well, Recons did have a point reduction cost, so we're seeing a lot of curses now, compared to last AT where you'd only see one. Now you're seeing like a dual curse combo. T1 cruisers, obviously the most popular out of all. Vexors being probably the king right now of T1 cruisers right now. I have a feeling Caracals may come back, and maybe some like rapid light all-ins. Caracals really strong. Mauler's also really good because they have a lot of tanks. So those are my top 3 picks for T1 cruisers, and the curse is probably the MVP for Recons.
So we do have only 5 minutes or so before this next match comes through. My stream is still not loading, so sadly I can't see what the audience is predicting. But we've got kind of a pair off between Snuffbox and Project Mayhem. I think I'm going to side with Project Mayhem. I think I favour them slightly over Snuffbox. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I couldn't elaborate on it, but that's going to be my guess. We do have some more graphs coming up, hopefully soon. I believe we have a stress graph available if Mr. Equalizer can... It's not ready yet, but apparently...
How's your stress?
Never mind. My stress graph, whenever I ask for a graph, absolutely goes through the roof. They told me they have it. Do they have it? Here we go. Here it comes. There we go. So EQ and biostress as Bay talks. You can see Bay opening his mouth predicates a high level of stress between EQ and Bio. You see Bay start talking there, and immediately their stress spikes going up and down again as well. And then finally you see at the very end of the graph Bay talking, leading to possibly a new spike throughout the day. I have to say, compared to last year, especially the first day of last year, this has been much more chill and smoother. Last year we had a thunderstorm going outside on the first day that it's either hit the building or it hit near the building, and just the internet just died for like 20 minutes. So we got a nice break, but it was a very, very stressful break. Still, we have but a few moments before this match coming up. Reload, Ithaca, do you have any thoughts about matches looking forward? Any matches that you're very much looking forward to see today? Or any matches you definitely advise the viewers to go back and re-watch from yesterday, as we have a whole team dedicated to uploading and editing those vids from yesterday as soon as possible?
I think the A Band Apart Hard Knocks match coming up later on could be a very interesting one to watch. Both teams, I guess, are probably top 16 capable, especially A Band Apart did very well last year, getting up into high into the top 16. Hard Knocks want to have something to prove, they want to do well as well, and of course whatever the victor of that match goes forward probably to face WeForm Volta, so it could be an interesting set of matches right there.
Yeah, Reload, any picks from yourself?
Exodus versus Thermodynamics, that is a definite match to watch, because that is the kings of US time zone small gang right there. So it's going to be the king. It's going to be like the king versus the underdog. So I'm hyped for that match.
Fantastic. Well, let's find out what the result is going to be of the Snuffbox versus Project Mayhem match here on Event T performed AT15. Let's go to the casters.